I'm curious to see what other people have.
Yep, me too.
We all have different interpretations of what we're going to see in that painting, and almost every single one of us are going to think it's going to be something entirely different.
Yeah.
Entirely different. And we need to try and stand in front of you all and try and convince you of what my damaged eyeballs see. And kind of a big deal. Start off, my name is Cody. It's not Boogerville Hobbies, it's Cody. I use Boogerville as a whatever so people can actually get a hold of me. There's some really weird people on the internet these days. And speaking of the group, I mean, most of us are very fanatical. We are very fanatical. We have our own beliefs. We're all where this casket is located, every single one of us.
I actually got booted off of that one site because I called somebody a dipshit.
I've gotten booted off of every single secret site so far. I got booted off the St. Augustine secret site because I showed how to prove how the paintings belong to each state.
They're so dismissive.
So dismissive, and nobody's willing to accept any other ideas or community. I saw a lot of things in there that I've never saw before, and thank you very much.
Yeah, they're there.
And my page doesn't do that. My page was created by a guy because of what was happening on the other pages.
I appreciate that.
So
First off,
you come on there, you can say it's on the moon, and no one's going to say anything about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Before I even get started, I would personally like to thank Miss Brittany for bringing us all together and actually doing this. If it wasn't for her work, we'd still be on the computer battling back and forth more on, hey, what? You don't see this? You don't see that? Well, she's actually brought us all together, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you very much. We all know how the story starts, and we all know the verse, and we've heard everything inside that verse and what our beliefs and what society is actually telling us. For me, the first chapter is actually in the water. It is that initial first watchtower they built on Anastasia Island. A lot of people are stuck in the Fountain of Youth. Oh, that's where they landed. That's where they built their initial thing. Well, yeah, that's where they went to, and thankfully the natives brought them in, but being conquistadors and doing what conquistadors do, especially bringing in all that disease, well, they couldn't stay there much longer. They were booted, they were kicked, so they started up their own place, and that was the actual first watchtower that is written in water. This is one of those old pictures that shows how this fell into it. Gone. 100%. Near men. The lighthouse. It was actually manned up during World War II to be a Coast Guard station. And that Coast Guard station is actually, you guys can see it every single day. What is going on? What's happening? Did you guys even know that the lighthouse keeper was a part of the Coast Guardsman's group? They're actually paid out of the Coast Guard. Pretty outstanding to me. With the wind rose. Everybody's got a different interpretation. For me, I'm going to use the Japanese version. It's talking about a nautical maneuver. Well, we couldn't have a nautical maneuver, especially anywhere near land, if we didn't have a lighthouse. Absolutely. Not only that, but at the lighthouse, during the point in time, there was a lot of old, broken down equipment. This entire property was abandoned in the 1970s, especially after the keeper's house was burnt down. The whole entire structure was really there except for the roof and some of the levels and some of the things, but it is absolutely burnt down. Now, at this point in time, in 1982, when Mr. Price was going to do his task, this was already being purchased again by the Junior Service Lake to be restored and already on top or in the National Conservative of Buildings and Places. Not only that, but the Coast Guard men had their own weather detectors. Us in the military, I was in the Navy for 21 years, we had weather guessers. We called those aerographicers mates, and those are the same things they have in the Coast Guard. So they actually had a wind rose present. We just can't see it today because it like rotted out and it's nasty. It happens over time. I totally 100% agree with you guys' location, and it is absolutely in here. Here's a nautical chart of the area. And some of the things that we can see in that nautical chart is probably going to be Conch Island for shell. How about limestone quarry? Silver sands, or even better for silver, for the silver sands over here was the actual light tower or the water tower that was destroyed over time. And then, of course, salt for Salt Run. There's only one place that I can actually stand and look at all of these at one time, and that's directly at that lighthouse. That lighthouse has been a guiding beacon for a long, long time, and that forensic lens actually looks like a teardrop. Absolutely looks like a teardrop when that light goes across it. pretty powerful as it goes through. Now, if I was to climb up all the way to the 219 steps to see all these different wonderful things, I also get to see the exact location where I believe the treasure is actually buried. Right there in Mrs. Dawson's little flower garden, her lily garden to the side. Here's what our site was in 1970 to 1982, where the Junior Service League started actually doing the reconstruction of that building. That auspicious fire lit it very, very easily for Byron to actually place. He didn't have to get in there and go too deep. There was only a small metal fence surrounding the area. So it's not like that baseball stadium in Boston where you had to actually crawl through and go through. Junior Service League had already owned this property and was building it back up. I like the numbers for what's written into it, but I believe it's 1565 upside down.
Oh, okay.
Upside down, and we can absolutely look in the back. This is all a practice in stenography and how we're actually going to see some of the hidden pictures. Reflections, very easy to see those hidden pictures. Now as for that light, if we were to actually look at what's that symbols inside the jewel, this is a navigational symbol. Anybody worth their salt in the Navy knows that that's a navigational symbol, and that is actually the symbol that tells us lighthouse on any navigational chart. And thankful for me, when I went to the St. Augustine Library, or to the lighthouse, they actually told me straight out what all these different charts and things mean. They sell these books right there, ready to rock. And this is the lighthouse on the chart. Stars by day. We actually have mounted stars on the side of the keeper's building. There's actually a group of them on the south and the north side of the building. Now these aren't just decorative stars. This is what holds the brick and the coquina together. And they're there forever. And this was a lasting namesake even after the fire. Been there forever. Lions Gate, 100% agree. That is our honking that we hear from the Bridge of Lions. Every time the boat goes underneath, horns a sound, stops the traffic, and allows the ships to go through back underneath. Where the oaks touch the ground, the phrase bending branches are called the ancient live oaks in the lighthouse grounds. In the northeast corner, these sprawling limbs bend to touch the grounds. The oaks stand as living landmarks. And in fact, these are pretty awesome. These are the only oaks that I've seen in natural structure throughout the entire area. It's going all the way down, touching the ground, and then coming back up. And a green picket fence. When the Coast Guard moved in during World War II, they actually put a big, huge fence around the entire property. The entire property. Unfortunately, in 1969, the Coast Guard officially left the property and left it abandoned. Some of that original fencing you can still see today. Now they've repaired it, replaced the sections they needed to, and painted it white. But we can all absolutely see that Coast Guard, that green picket fence went around that building the entire way. Years past, rain falls. To me, this is a lean to the actual cistern. This is how they collected their water. Reading the whole entire thing about how those lighthouse keepers used to keep that water clean, throwing chalk or powder chalk through it, and all kinds of stuff. Kill the bacteria. Last clue, base of a tall tree. There is a very, very, very pretty tall fifth. It's right standing outside that lightkeeper's house in the northeast corner. The line is referring us, or the actual page tells us to go to the northeast corner and then go back to the southeast side. This tree is northeast of the entrance of the lighthouse, and we'll go to the southeast side back for the actual location. Picture within a puzzle. As the whole entire last presentation just went through, there is so much hidden stenography that's inside here. Once our generation today, our kids and our grandkids, they call them Easter eggs. We called it cryptic imagery. This came all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci and other artists of the time. Ways to hide things over and over again. This is what's called and referred to as the Drost effect. Going smaller and smaller and smaller until it's larger. And the whole entire thing is changing and morphing as it goes through this Drost effect. This is me going in really, 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 really tight and finding that small imagery. It's actually a lighthouse with the word fog written around it, in fog. On the other side right here, I know it's harder to see from this distance and lighting, but it's a candle. And it just gets larger and larger and larger. And it repeats itself over and over again. This is all anamorphic art. Anamorphic art changes depending on our perception, our angle of viewing, and definitely due to the light that's being brought across us. I can definitely see a cuff going into a hand, going all the way across. This is directing us how to read the painting as an actual imagery. Yes, sir, I see a question.
Go over that last section that you just said.
Anamorphic art?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, anamorphic art changes depending on how we view. It changes on how we view. So just as we said before, we got to look at the reverse side or mirror imagery of it. Depending on how we look at that reverse or imagery, we can actually depict different things going through. This has been going on forever. They have anamorphic art that taught early Christians a where to actually pray.
I've heard the term, but I don't, I never knew how
Yes, sir.
what the word. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, in my research, I spoke to a couple artists because I had heard some different things from interviews over time, and one of my very close friends recommended doing some different things with light, mirrors, moving things around, and more specifically, like example, the water feature in the bottom coming off the left. If you put a certain color filter over that, you may see words appear that you can't see without that filter being in place.
Yeah.
I did this, and I just want to say for everybody's benefit, when I looked at the water feature coming off the left and I looked at the painting, I believe I saw something that said page 53 of The Secret is what I see in the water. And if that's the case, and when you open the book to page 53, what do you get? You get the verses. So one of those verses fits the painting. That's what I saw. I just want to share that with everybody. That's what I think I see. So,
And I do have some shows down in the back, so when we get done, we can go back there, we can turn on some lights and actually rotate these paintings from the exact picture that was in your book.
So it's verse
Your
9
eyeballs will tell
on
me
page
what you see.
53? It is. Okay.
it is 100%. First chapter. There's two there, obviously, in the book, for what it's worth.
Also September.
In the shadow of the great giant is the other one. So, I mean, that's the one that's on page 53. So,
Outstanding.
I'm going to obviously assume that what I'm seeing is correct, or what I think I see, then it 100% lines up.
And this is all stuff that John Palencar would be very familiar with too.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
techniques you could use to make
Yeah.
an illusion treasure hunt, which is basically they're just eluding clues.
All this
Definitely.
is, and we follow the arrows. That's what I highly suggest. Follow the arrows. As soon as you see something that looks like it could be compared to an arrow, try and follow it where it's going through. Move that picture until that arrow comes into focus, and then see what you see on the painting next to that arrow that comes into focus. Yes, sir.
To the point of your anamorphic art, if you rotate the painting, in fact, right where your arrowhead is right now, if you were to focus on that spot, rotate the painting 90, a little bit more than 90 degrees, you see a bull, and the sapphire is the bull's right eye. It's a bull's eye. If you look at the eye of the peregrine, and you rotate the painting about 130 degrees clockwise, it's a perfect match for a statue at Mission Nombre de Dios with the face.
I agree 100% with a lot of almost everything that's been said so far. I agree that this is a places to go until you get where you are and the cask is actually located. A lot of those great, wonderful places are, well, we've already gone through a lot of that. Green, keep on skipping. We all know this silly crap. Oh, there's something new. As I go through and I move this painting, looking in my reflected mirror imagery, the rocks that actually transform into letters. And as you transform and move this painting in different directions, backwards and forth, you will see different letters coming out of different areas. What you thought was an M could be an E, could be an R, could rotate into a lot of different things. And it's up to you all to interpret, and hopefully you agree with what I see. If not, cool. Hopefully you see something new that'll lead you in the right direction. I definitely see the numbers 1 through 5 displayed in the middle of the painting as we go through. 1, 2, 3, 4, and little 5, as in 5 places to go to solve the riddle. Solve this puzzle. Scene 5, I'm not going to go through all the scenes because I don't want to be here all day and there's too many other personnel that want to put in their stuff. So I'll go to scene 5. How do I know this is scene 5? Well, first off, if I make it black and white, it's a lot easier to see. You guys happen to see any 5s in that picture? I'll pull out a couple to make it a little easier. I'm not going to pull out all of them. What's the fun in that? I'll just pull out a couple. And I absolutely see a 5 right up in the arm. I see a 5 down in here. And if I look down here, there's another 5. The bark of that 5 actually mirrors that sable palm that we actually saw in those pictures. We can actually see this gross effect happen over and over again. We can see a wall that actually turns into another tree depending on how we rotate and focus it. It is going to give us that exact place over and over again. Now, scene 3, she's up here as well. We can see a lot of 3s as well going through. Scene 5 is only where the actual cast location is to what I'm reading. Can you guys imagine yourselves there at the steps and actually envision these places inside that painting? You guys see how some of the rocks definitely reflect the pattern of the sable palm? Conclusion. If I'm right, this cast is lost forever. Absolutely lost forever. And I know that's really, really humbling or easy for me to see or to say. The city of St. Augustine, especially the lighthouse, and most of the places we're not going to be able to dig in any which way, shape, or form. And I actually asked the lighthouse keepers' houses that are working on the northeast corner bricking this month, hey, can you guys like prorate there and just chat? Oh wait, that's not real history. That's not real history. Unfortunately, their not real history has forced me and my family to visit the whole entire city of St. Augustine. Just as requested. We got out from in front of the TV. We went out, we paid our parking, we walked. And we have seen all the great, wonderful places. The Fountain of Youth is a great and wonderful place to visit. But if it was there, I believe it would have been found in 44 years. There's a lot of people smarter than I am that are still looking there for some reason. Any questions, comments, curiosities?
Yeah, ooh.
Please, sir.
What was the iceberg?
The iceberg to me?
Yes.
Well, the iceberg to me, if we get back to that big painting in the sky, right here,
Yeah.
I did not get much out of there except for some wordings that said southeast, and then going back to the other side that said northeast. I didn't get much out of the iceberg personally, but I also was not spending a lot of time on an iceberg. I was looking for everything underneath it.
A lot of people do. A lot of people.
A lot of
They
people
got it
do.
at the old alligator farm out west of town, and they
To me,
swear
to
God
me,
it's right there.
to me, like somebody said, keep it simple. To me,
Yeah.
you know, when I was much younger, watched cartoons, various things. To me, that's trying to tell you that's a rock and that's an island. And you think of a palm tree and an island. That's what I think of. I think that's Rock Island.
I always thought that
That's
it
what I think.
verified that it was Florida because the rock and the tree are in almost every Florida seal.
Yeah.
From
Well-
You're right.
1984
Especially the old ones.
prior,
Yeah.
until they corrected it because some stations didn't know that.
A lot of this area has barrier islands. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that. Anastasia Island, you go from North St. Augustine all the way to Ponte Vedra. It's pretty much, at one time it was an island.
And even if you go down to New Smyrna, same thing. It's all Barrier
So
Island. down
if
there.
you look at what Chow and Pound card, so if you simplify the secret, we're looking for a park. It's in St. Augustine. look at the painting. What's in the park? There's a palm tree, there's a rock, there's a conquistador. Look at the specific stuff, the Spanish helmet. Where can you find one of them at? There's gonna be a flag, stars move by day. Flag.
Does the flag have to be a star that moves by day? Does it have to be on the flag?
Yeah, it could be
How come I not
that
have permanent
reference, it
structure
could be a whole bunch of stuff, but that's how I look at these paintings now. It's like when Byron Carr said, look around, we know, Byron actually said he was hoping to get families out in parks. He told people that in interviews, so.
There's actually a.
Look at the painting, find a park that's got all that stuff in it, and all the stuff that's hidden.
If we'd like to take a look at the back room and turn on some lights, rotate a board, and you guys can look at, make your own determination.
Yeah, there is actually a star bus line in town now. I don't know if it was in,
But it gets absorbed
academics,
into
I
the
don't
TV.
think so. I was looking for something with stars on it.
I have a pretty good thought about what,
There's
other
so
than
much.
St. Augustine, and I'll share with everybody after everybody's done, and I don't have a problem sharing, because you know what, I want this thing found just as much as anybody else. I'm just saying.
I have a
Hopefully
comment,
after this, I agree, I'm
I have a
done.
comment about the rock.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you put the rock back up?
Which, the painting?
That one. So, my belief is this shape is actually three different things. It's three different things. It is the Rock of Gibraltar. Why the Rock of Gibraltar? That represents Spain back in the days of Pedro Menendez, especially since this part of the Rock of Gibraltar is the plan view, the satellite view of Gibraltar. It's 100% Gibraltar. And if you turn this way, there's a stick figure showing an adult figure, probably a woman, with a child in her arms and a staff. And on Gibraltar, where the head of that person is the shrine called Our Lady of Europe, okay? And that's Mary and Jesus. 100% that's Gibraltar and the Rock of Gibraltar. It's
It
also,
looks like it, yeah.
it's also an iceberg. Why is it an iceberg? There is, can't quite see here, but there's an event that happened to a young man that's buried in the National Cemetery. His name is Russell Palms. JJP's initials represent him. He died during Operation Teardrop at the end of World War II, and he died aboard the Frederick C. Davis. It was a destroyer-class ship that was being used to protect the coast of the United States around New York. And his ship was the only one during Operation Teardrop that went down in the ocean, not too terribly far away from where the Titanic went down. That Titanic went down because of an iceberg. The iceberg also represents the moment at which the United States Senate passed the Civil Rights Act on June the 19th, 1964, and Martin Luther King. So I haven't heard anybody in here talk about the history of St. Augustine in the 60s, 1960s, or the 1860s. It's a huge part of this puzzle, and I haven't heard anybody mention this yet. Martin Luther King was on Bridge Street, across the street from Dr. Haling's office, having breakfast in the Iceberg restaurant when the famous picture of him showing a V for Victory sign was taken and broadcast all over the world, because he was the one trying to get the Civil Rights Act passed in St. Augustine. St. Augustine is huge when it comes to the passage of that act, and there's all kinds of clues in the book that talk about that. Look at the Screaming Mimi. Screaming Mimi is Mimi Jones. She's the one who was in the picture screaming when the acid was being poured in the pool. That's who the Screaming Mimi is. The Mugwumps, their Latin name is, I think it's gubernatorius filibusterus, which means Senate filibuster. The longest Senate filibuster in history was a cloture vote, which means shut the filibuster down, happened on June the 10th, 1964, because of the events that were going on in St. Augustine. June the 10th, June the 11th is when Martin Luther King got put into St. John's County Jail, when he wrote the letters to the rabbis and Jackie Robinson. What's it called? The one with the baseball player in the picture.
Team spirits.
Huh?
Team spirits.
Team spirits. That whole picture of Monty Irvin standing in front of the poster of himself and Willie Mays and the other guy that was in the right field when Willie Mays made the famous over-the-shoulder catch. Monty Irvin, 1981. Monty Irvin, 1950 something. I forget exactly what the date was, but that picture, like many things in the secret, Byron and JJP don't actually say Boogerville. They show a picture of your beard, and it's up to us to figure out who you're talking about. Okay, that's what the team spirits is all about. It's ultimately
That's
about
illusion.
Jackie Robinson, because what most people don't know is that Monty Irvin was the one that Branch Rickey, behind Benny Branches, Branch Rickey chose Monty Irvin to be the one to break the color barrier, and he wasn't available, so he chose the next person, which was Jackie Robinson, and he broke the color barrier on April 15th, 1947. The Titanic went down in 1947. Remember, we have the thing about taxes.
1912. Or 1912 or 1914.
And we also have Tax Day, April 15th. And what is the most significant date or event in American history that happened on April 15th? By a lot. That's when Lincoln was assassinated. That's when Lincoln died at 7:22 a.m. This horse rider is three people. It's Don Quixote, 100%. It's Pedro Menendez, 100%. It's Abraham Lincoln sitting in his rocking chair, and this sapphire that's in his helmet is where John Wilkes Booth shot him. They say in the back of the head, but really the side of the head. I was actually there where he was shot a couple of weeks ago. So he went in that room, went directly to Lincoln, and shot him right there. So that thing is identifying exactly where Lincoln was shot. Behind bending branches, Lincoln was sitting in a rocking chair. How does a rocking chair rock? On rockers, which are bending branches. So behind bending branches is also talking about John Wilkes Booth. And sorry for taking up all this time. This means something else I'm not going to go into, but you mentioned green picket fence.
Yes.
There's a whole Civil War part of this because of one man. His name is Brigadier General Martin Davis Hart. He's 100% part of this. He's at the Mission. He's at the National Cemetery. He's at the Oldest House Museum. He's at the Ponce de Leon Hotel. He's at in an administrative building across the street from Memorial Presbyterian Church. He is everywhere in this puzzle, and he sat on top of this. These are the round tops. He sat on what we sometimes call Big Round Top on July 3rd, 1863, and watched Pickett's charge. Pickett's men were said to have been green because they were held in reserve.
They got slaughtered.
Well, no, they were held in reserve July 1 and 2, and Lee told Longstreet, who told Pickett, we need you to be the one who leads the charge. And what's particularly interesting about that whole thing is that this is Pickett's men. On his immediate right flank were the flowers. And the flowers were the Florida Brigade attached to Pickett's right flank. Pickett went this way, you bent this way, and the flowers went that way because of reasons. Those gentlemen returned to St. Augustine and are buried at Tolomano Cemetery. 13 men in there participated in the Vicksburg campaign, the siege of Petersburg, and Gettysburg, and Iceberg, the burns of St. Augustine.
So where is it?
Where's it?
Where's the cask at?
Well, I'm not gonna say that.
But to add to it, all the civil rights stuff he just talked about, when you go in the book, Garden Wall is the first story for St. Augustine, and it's Africa. And the corn, this is where I tell people on my podcast that you got to look, it's not just the words, it's the images. It's Joe Ellen's dolls, because it's a stalk of corn. So if you look at Fort Mose, the first African settlement in the country, which was just, actually they just